All right, good morning, everyone. Wow, it was that kind of a night, huh? Well, I'm acutely conscious of the fact that part of my job is to wake you up. So let's try this one more time as if we were in church. Good morning, everyone. All right, mission accomplished. I'm sure some of you had a memorable night. I'm sure some of you don't remember last night. But either way, I'm sure it was quite good. So I'm going to take quite a risk for a CIO. I'm not going to talk to you about cloud. I'm not going to talk about data analytics. I'm not going to talk about big data. And you're probably going to think, well, he's not a real CIO if he doesn't talk about those things. In fact, I'm going to talk about something quite risky: passion, culture. And why is a technology guy talking about passion and culture? And I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, it's important to know my background. I'll admit there's a commercial on this slide somewhere, and I probably don't get paid by my firm if I don't show it, but it's really about context. Fundamentally, I run a technology organization that serves people in over 100 countries, and you can see the stats. And that's my context. Your context may be a little different. I'm in the people business, and that's my context. Your context may be a little different. But also, I get to travel the world. I've been in over 100 countries, and everywhere I go, there's something that bothers me. Actually, there are lots of things that bother me, but this one in particular is really around IT organizations. Simply put, many IT organizations are hated. People would rather have a root canal sometimes than deal with the IT organization. People devise amazing ways of trying to get around the IT organization. And knowing how important technology is, and how we've really got to be at the table in executing and setting strategy, if people don't want to deal with us, then we never ever get to really take our true seat at that table. So I got to thinking about it. The other thing was I was having a media discussion, I think it was with the New York Times, and the reporter said, Larry, you ought to just give up. You know, technology can never meet the needs of an enterprise. You know, consumer technology at home is always going to be much better than what you can provide, and you really should just give up. IT is going to be broken up and put into the various parts of the business, and that's going to be the end of that. And I am nothing if not contrarian, so I got to thinking about how you could fix that. And along came the notion of really creating passion, really creating this culture that celebrates technology. And in so doing, you get this notion that people will change their attitudes about the technology organization. It was Peter Drucker, sort of the master strategist, who said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we've got to figure out really how to change the culture, how to influence the culture. Which then gets you to questions like, well, what exactly is a technology culture? I'm not sure I know what it is. You sort of know it when you see it. More importantly, you sort of feel it when you see it. But it's really around people respecting technology, getting a buzz out of technology, and us in IT organizations benefiting from that. With people believing, perhaps, that an IT organization can be cool and ought to be invited to that table and ought to be part of that strategy and actually has ideas and innovative ideas, which gets us away from the notion sometimes that we ought not to be in the forefront of such change. Because sometimes it's hard. And as CIOs, as technology leaders, we very often tell people, well, you know, we need to protect our users from change. You know, how many times have we heard that, right? The rate of change is too fast. We need to protect it. We should skip this. We should skip that. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. And then I noticed those same people I was protecting from change was sleeping in the rain outside their favorite store waiting for a new model of something that they already had. And I thought, they don't want to be protected from change. They just want to be protected from my change. So how could I create a level of change that was more palatable to our people? And it really came down to changing the image, changing the notion. Now, there are lots of things you got to do. You got to get the trains to run on time. You got to measure stuff. You got to do the cloud. You got to do all of those things. This isn't that. This is really about changing the hearts and minds of people. And again, you get back to why on earth is a CIO talking about changing the hearts and minds of people. And the reason that I'm talking about changing the hearts and minds of people is because we're really trying to do something very strategic. We're trying to ensure that technology is at the forefront and also the foundation and also embedded throughout the strategy of an organization, and that we are afforded the opportunity to actually execute on that strategy. Plus, it makes us look cool, and who doesn't want to look cool? I've got 2 daughters at home, so I have a lot of experience with me not looking cool. Why wouldn't I want to try and look cool at work? It also allows us to attract the talent that we need. The next generation's really attracted to organizations that can help them fulfill their aspirations. So for all of those reasons, we thought this was a really important thing to do. So this is just one case study. Some of the things we did, plus stealing from other organizations out there. The notion of, well, how would one go about doing it? There are lots of ways of doing it, so just treat this as input. But in my organization, you don't command the people to do things. You don't go out and say, you will now have technology culture. You will now be excited about technology. It doesn't quite work that way. People tend to just ignore it. First, they wouldn't read the memo anyway or delete the email you sent them, so that really wouldn't quite work. So we went about doing a number of things. The first one was investing in mobility. People really care about mobility. Sometimes we go onto campus and we discuss our 401k program and we discuss our leave benefits and we discuss, paying for graduate school education. We do all of those things. And people believe that that's really important. And then we tell them, we'll pay for your favorite PDA, we'll pay for your iPhone, etc. And their eyes light up. And we'll do this and we'll do that. Their eyes light up. And it's just amazing to me because the value of the 401k is 100 times, the value of something else. But people are attracted to a variety of things and we begin to tap into that. So lots of investments in mobility. But we made a big mistake when we started investing in mobility. We decided that we could get a better deal on one particular device. So we got it in bulk. We rolled it out to everybody, sent out a memo saying, look how great I am. All of you now have this thing that you didn't have before. And instead of reveling in the adulation, what I got was hate mail. And what I realized is people want some level of control over their own environment. Some people think to bring your own device. Bring your own device in some organizations is really just a way to save money, shifting the costs from the company to people. That's not what we were about. We're paying for those devices. Even though you're paying for those devices, people wanted to be able to choose. Thus was born the era of choice, letting people know you get to choose your laptop. Now, there's some we support, some we don't. Right? Letting people know you get to choose your PDA, you get to choose your level of connectivity, you get to choose a number of things. And beginning to realize that the whole concept of choice just got people talking, just got people buzzing. People would send messages back saying, wow, I cannot believe that they would just let me choose the things I want to do, coming from an era of being pretty dictatorial about IT and simply telling them this is what you're going to get and you're going to like it because we got a better price on it. And that means we then have to take funds and transfer them to other parts, from other parts of the organization if we're serious about really enabling choice, if we're serious about ensuring that people actually have control of that environment. And then the concept of apps everywhere. We see that in the world today, and you'd say, well, it's a sort of an obvious solution, and it wasn't for us. but understanding that really the world has changed and we've got to change with it. And building apps everywhere doesn't mean taking all of the functionality that we have on the web and moving them to apps, but really giving them vignettes, apps that they could do certain elements of a business process with. And it comes from the notion that people today can't be commanded to simply exploit a particular business process or to enhance it. They have to be inspired to do so. They have to be induced to do so. And therefore, we now have to do things like write apps that allow them to explore in an intuitive way a business process. Because in the old days, the CIO's dirty secret is that we didn't write applications for the people who use them, the end users. We wrote them for the enterprise. We wrote them for risk, we wrote them for the lawyers, we wrote them for the CFO, we wrote them for the CEO, we wrote them for leadership. The people who actually had to use the applications, they were a distraction. You know the old joke in IT. Our applications would just work a lot better if people would stop using them. All right? And that changed. Now it's my music and my friends and my this and my that. And we really have to figure out how to inspire people. Mobility is one way of doing it. You know, the whole apps ecosphere is another way of doing it. But it also has another impact, and that's that cool factor. People believe we're cool. And it's not just writing an app and throwing it on a phone, but actually investing, as we did, in this concept of design great experiences. And when people look at an app and say, wow, that's beautiful, I cannot believe our IT organization did that. They must have just paid somebody else to do it. And really investing in the notion that an internal IT organization can be cool and can, in fact, impact the culture in a very significant way. Then the concept of moving everything online, again, is done in many organizations for many different purposes. Some people just do it to save money. For some, it's a natural, that's the way the organization works. But for us, again, doing a number of things online had that impact. It's getting people to believe that we were in the digital age, that we were modern, that we could design great experiences there, that we could collaborate. Something as simple as, having an application that allows you to look up people and their pictures and their likes and their dislikes worldwide, whether they were in Tanzania, or Miami, or Milwaukee, or Copenhagen, doesn't matter. The ability to do that. So, yeah, we ought to do that. We've just never done it in our history before. And being able to show people those kinds of capabilities, the things that we're finding, again, rub off on us. And then there are a number of names at the bottom of the slide you might not recognize, but again, it's all part of the notion of creating this cool environment. So things like the iZone and the Greenhouse and the Hive, they're all crazy names in a way, but there are all of these innovative spaces, actually investing in spaces where teams of people would go to solve problems. And they look different, and they feel different, and they have technology. And we invested in this Deloitte University, an 800-room campus, but put all of this cool technology. One of this has this wall, and you just go and you touch the wall, and you see people, and their images get larger, and you can find out about them and who's there with you and find your friends, that kind of stuff. And it's all, again, designed to change the atmosphere, to have people believe that technology plays not a boring vital part in the organization, but an exciting vital part in the organization. So by definition, the people who bring you some of that technology can also play a vital part in executing and setting the strategy of an enterprise. And they're good enough to be trusted with that kind of capability. And then making it fun. That was a lesson we had to learn. A lot of our communications go through the legal department. Right? So you get the predictable result at times. You write a new app, and there's the 23-page single-space license agreement that you're supposed to click on before you get into the application. And I'm sure all of you read the 23 pages before you accept that license to go into the application. And presumably that would make us safe. And we found out, of course, that 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 wasn't quite it. So we did a number of things. One is sort of make the CIO vulnerable. Mind you, CIOs like me are always vulnerable anyway, but accessible. So we did a thing, create CIO Corner. We actually send out a message to everybody about technology items. At first, we used to talk about technology items that I wanted to talk about, until we found it was a much better idea to talk about technology items that they wanted to talk about. And now the Technology Corner is actually the top-rated item on our intranet. I mean, above compensation. I mean, who would believe that people would want to read about our technology more than they would want to read about compensation? And that was pretty interesting. Then we tried another experiment. So at Deloitte University in Dallas, we actually we decided to get people together, and we had this technology exhibition. Now think about this, right? You could come watch technology stuff, or you could go to the barn and you could drink and, watch basketball or something. We had hundreds of people voluntarily showing up. Now, of course, we had beer as well. We're not silly. But we had hundreds of people showing up, to look at the technology. And when the doors closed at 10 p.m., they were still there, didn't want to leave. And we call that one Appapalooza. And that was a really interesting eye-opener for me, that people could actually be truly interested in what we do, as opposed to hanging out in the bar and having a drink. And then we wanted to talk about security, because CIOs have to talk about security. It's just the way it is. And we found that the way we were talking about security just didn't work for anybody. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And they just tuned us out. They didn't even read the message that said don't do this or don't do that. So what was the point? So we decided to come up with another more interesting approach to security. And the idea was born to do a series of videos, which actually went over quite well, and people kept asking for the next installment of the video. So I actually decided that we were going to play a snippet, well, actually one of those short videos for you. I think it's a minute or two. Let's roll the video, and then I'll conclude after that.
Hey, did you hear about our Megadata proposal?
Good news?
We lost the bid to you-know-who.
I mean, I worked like all weekend on that.
They had the exact same proposal we did, which isn't all that surprising considering our proposal, including Megadata's financials, was posted to coolproposals.com. And the guy tweeted a link with a note that said, "Check out this bad boy."
Who would do something like that? Check out this bad boy. And tweeted.
This should get me that promotion.
Business, portfolio, numbers, sell. 401k plan. Move that to a 501k. Computers. You're a good man. You're fired.
Oh, and the best part? The guy's Twitter handle was Unicorn Boss Man.
Twitter, right?
I know, right? Unicorn Boss Man.
Yeah.
I know. It's so silly.
Right.
I know. Unicorn Boss Man. Seriously? Yeah, who does that?
Yeah, that's right.
I know. It's so ridiculous.
Tweets.
By the way, the client saw that tweet.
It was interesting for us that people would come up afterwards and ask, when was the next installment of the video coming? And when was the last time somebody ever came up to me and said, when is the next installment of your security anything showing up? So it was again another eye-opener for me. Now, of course, I'm only talking about good things today, so I only put good comments on the screen. But what we found was, people reacted positively to the overall organization. Before, people would sort of savage us. They would just show up and say, I can't believe this, I can't believe that. How could anybody in an IT organization do this or that? And now you get all these love letters in a way. And now when people have a problem, they come up to you and they say stuff like, I really like things here, but could you do this one thing for me? And it really changes the equation for us. So that was the experiment we did. I want to close with one last thing, and that is to say, every year we do these technology trends. There are lots of technology trends out there, and I promise I won't walk you through these technology trends. But I had another epiphany as I looked through our trends and helped write the one on technical debt reversal. It's sort of an interesting term for the notion that as IT organizations, sometimes we make one good decision at a time. We're not going to invest in this. We don't have a good business case to upgrade this. We think we're going to skip this one, and they're all correct decisions. But then over a period of time, each correct decision has put us in a hole that we can't get out of. And that technical debt then doesn't allow us to really create the culture we need, because our platforms don't have the agility that we're looking for. So really there's some technical underpinning necessary to be able to deliver the kinds of unpredictable things that we want, so that we can promote that passion, so that we can influence that culture, so that we can appear to be cool. Not just because we want to be cool, but because then we can participate in the strategy of the organization. So I hope the risk was worth it. I hope you are now at least partially awake. Please enjoy Interop. Thank you.